Great to bring in Brian Calley with us here again on the MegaCast. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. And Brian, before we even start off, I should say congratulations because you are also going to be having a little bit of a change in your title there, being named the new CEO as well. So congratulations to you.
I appreciate it. It's really been an honor to get to know and work in this association. It's 51 years old, about 28,000 members, which makes it the largest state-based small business association in the country. And I love the mission, love the people, love the team, and I also love the role that we play in the political system. The policy making and influencing policies, a relatively small part of our overall organization, but it's the part that the public sees. It's the part that we're known for. And we like to engage in a way that is respectful and inclusive, but also forceful for the interests of small business owners that make our communities work.
So with that, Rob Fowler, who will be the outgoing CEO, hopefully he's retiring, taking some time off after this past year. But as you get that CEO name alongside your title as well, how do you hope to be able to shift and navigate the association coming out of the pandemic?
Our relationship with members has never been deeper than it is right now. And leveraging that to build a better future for small business owners is going to be critical. Just to give an example, when MIOSHA proposed permanent workplace safety rules for the pandemic, in other words, rules with no end, we engaged with our members. We asked our members to provide public comment into the system. And we had over 1,800 members submit public comments, which is an extraordinarily high number. And to have that level of engagement, it made a big difference. By the way, about a week later, they withdrew that proposal for those permanent rules. So it was really amazing to see the system work that way. We're just regular, everyday people that were running small businesses around the state, engaged, and it moved the system. It was a real inspiration. Even for me, as long as I've been involved in this process, you don't usually see it work quite that way. We're just everyday, regular people engaged in the system in a way that it had to be reckoned with.
What's it been like for you as well? Because we do know you were lieutenant governor, so you have that political background as well, which offers insight and knowledge into how government works. So what's it been like for you to take that knowledge and put it into this private sector?
I always knew it would be important insight to bring into the association, but I don't think I fully appreciated how important it would be when it came to curating, deciphering, translating the orders and the information coming out of government, and also having a sense for how those decisions get made in the first place and the things that influence those decisions. So being able to kind of forecast what was coming in the future. Usually if more strict rules were on the horizon, it's something that I could see coming because I knew what the government was looking at and making those decisions. That's not to say I agreed with the decisions that were being made, but to say I understood and could predict the direction that they were going. And so it has been really important to our members and a closer relationship than we've ever had, in that it's a very uncertain, it has been a very uncertain time period. And while hopefully more certainty is in our future, looking back at this last year, that was really the thing that I know so many small business owners had a hard time dealing with or coping with, is just not knowing what to plan for, what the future was going to hold, and kind of having their destiny taken out of their hands. And that, I think that's one of the long-term missions that we have coming out of this is to create a scenario where small business owners who are a part of the community and they treat their employees and their customers like family, because in a lot of cases, literally they are family, they can be trusted to do it the right way. And so I think as we look toward the long term, I think keeping really the focus on giving small business owners back the steering wheel to their own business is critically important.
Well, talk about perfect timing, though. You joined the association and then this pandemic happening, your insight, I would just imagine, had to be so vital and so many pieces of these conversations. But we do know, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. Hopefully, we are emerging. Things are looking hopeful, but businesses are still struggling, especially small businesses, because trying to recover from months and of lower revenue, or even in some cases, some of these businesses didn't have any revenue coming in, and they're still struggling. How long do you anticipate it's going to take for us to have a solid recovery here for our small businesses in Michigan?
It's so important to understand that the top line economic statistics do not tell the story about what's happening industry by industry, and then according to size of business within those industries. So smaller retail companies, those who serve office workers. So for example, the janitorial services in office buildings, or the office buildings themselves, dry cleaners, and just all that whole ecosystem of businesses that serve office workers, they're only just now getting at a point where their markets are starting to come back. So after a year when you might see some of the behemoth businesses in Michigan, and the industries that kind of were known for, they've been largely recovered over the course of the last year, coming out of the spring of 2020. But sit down restaurants, fitness facilities, entertainment related businesses, those who serve office workers, downtown districts, those areas are only just starting to recover now. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. And at the same time, when they have the shot at going back at it, since they were the last ones to the table, they're having a hard time finding employees as well. So whereas other industries were able to kind of snatch up available employees because they were open and operating and running over this time period, think about that sit down restaurant that's finally got a chance to get back going, and they can't even stay open because they can't find enough employees. And by the way, they're doing their part in terms of raising wages and benefits and incentives. I mean, all kinds of changes that they're doing. It's just not enough people in the workforce right now.
Yeah, and we should point out as well, when we're having that conversation of, it should be a minimum of $15 an hour, and the benefits should be better, and this is a wake-up call to America to pay their employees more. You do wonder, sometimes these small businesses have very, very small profit margins. And so when you're mandating and trying to mandate these from a government level, you could be really shutting out even more of these small businesses that, for so many of them, they've only relied or, survived throughout the pandemic because of the graciousness of having family members and friends who have stepped in to try to help them keep the doors open.
And so many are paying more than $15 an hour in the entry level positions in the business. But what's happening today is that the federal plus state benefit and unemployment is the equivalency of about $16.55 an hour. So let's say a business comes to the table and they're hiring somebody for $20 an hour. Well, the incremental improvement over that unemployment benefit is only $3.45 an hour. So now you're saying to that employee, hey, you want to get back into the workforce, work 40 hours a week, and it's only incrementally $3.45 more than unemployment would be in the first place. So even $20, $22, $24, $25 an hour, those types of jobs are having a hard time competing with the unemployment system, because you can't really compete with 20 weeks off. I mean, that's if that's what's important to somebody. And then you got a whole slew of other issues, barriers to people coming to work as well, that deserve public policy answers, including things like childcare. That's why our association's getting more involved in education and childcare issues than we ever have before, because and then criminal justice reform is as well. There are a lot of people that are kind of sidelined right now, and not because they don't want to be, and not because they want to be sidelined, but because this life circumstance is dictated. So as we consider all of these issues, I think it's important that we try to tackle each one of them. It's not just the unemployment benefit; that's one of the pieces. It's also the child care system. We need to make sure that the K-12 system is open and operational in a more predictable way, so that Parents can have more confidence in getting back re-engaging in the workforce. I mean, there's a lot of different facets to it. And I think if we're going to capitalize on the economic momentum that has started, it's going to require that we expand the size of our workforce.
We're talking with Brian Calley. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. And Brian, with that, do you think what's going to be the silver lining coming out of this for some of our small businesses?
Well, there's an entrepreneurial boom happening right now. So a lot of new business filings have happened over the last year, and kind of surprising in terms of the number. So while we know a lot of businesses are struggling, a lot of others have, in this new and different world, have seen some opportunity and are taking the plunge and going after it. So I think we will look back at this time period and see it as one of those periods where this entrepreneurial spirit was sparked again, and created all kinds of other opportunities and growth. At least that's the hope. You know, small businesses are, when they're new, are very fragile, and how many will make it long term, that's definitely an open question. But the sheer volume of what we see happening right now, I think, is reason for optimism.
That's good to hear. And with that, can we kind of touch on the subject of some of the loans and grants that have been out there? Where do they stand? Because we know in the beginning of this pandemic, especially when it came to the PPP, they would be gone. The money would be gone within hours and days. Where do some of these loans stand currently? Is there any money still out there for some of these small businesses to try to get?
The Paycheck Protection Program has run its course now, and so it was hugely successful, though, for most businesses and most industries. It didn't work for every single business, but to their credit, Congress and our previous and current presidents both responded to the early criticisms of the Paycheck Protection Program, and I think created a system that was much more accessible to small businesses across the board. What's left now out of the Small Business Administration of the United States federal government expanded or increased economic injury disaster loans, the EIDL loans. Those are low interest, long-term loans that have more favorable terms than what you'd normally get in the marketplace, that are tied to those who suffered economic injuries. So those are still out there and available. But I think really the main thing is for the future, it's not going to be about grants and loans and things from the government. It's going to be the ability to predictably operate under a reasonable set of rules with a workforce that can handle the demand for people. I think if we get those pieces right, then we'll have a bright future.
Right, because small businesses, they can't operate day by day, week by week. A lot of them are putting a plan together that requires months in advance.
Building a business, it requires consistency, and you have this incremental growth and improvement over time. And so it's not like you can close down, stay closed or restricted for a period of time, and then just turn it back on. In a lot of ways, businesses, even very mature businesses that were around for a long time, they're literally back in startup mode. They're starting from scratch, and they're experienced entrepreneurs, and they're confident, can-do type people, and they're going after it. But you have businesses that before were like out of that start, they were consistent out of that startup phase and at a point of maturity. But when you have to be closed or significantly restricted for a year, then any of that momentum, your customer base, your employee base, a lot of them have gone other places to have their needs met. And so that puts those business owners in the unenviable position of having to literally start over again. And that's why, I'm always trying to encourage people to take that kind of pro small business inclination that most people have, and put it into action, intentional and deliberate action to help small businesses to recover. And that means going out of your way to give them some of your business. When you have an option, you could go this way, you could go that way. You could buy it from somebody who's very far away, or maybe buy somebody who's close that has an interest in your community, that supports your community. I think that would be just a good realistic thing that almost everybody could do.
Yeah, I will say, it's become a habit. You go on Amazon, and the other day I went to get something for the dog, and I was like, wait, no, let me see first if I can buy it at the pet store down the street, because they are local and it's a small business as well. And I do worry, as we continue to come out of the pandemic, that message of supporting local is starting to wane as life gets back to normal. But we have to remember, even outside of a pandemic, we need to support these local businesses because they make our communities unique. And with that, too, we should remember we're still under restrictions here in the state of Michigan. We've talked to people who have left, took their businesses to other states such as Florida or Indiana. But as we emerge out of this, what is your forecast for some of the small businesses here in the state for the summer and the next 6 months? Are we on the back end of this, do you think?
So far, it looks pretty good that we're heading in. Summer is a time when the infection rates get low anyway, even without the vaccine. Vaccination rates are still going at about 100,000 additional first vaccines per week, and so Michigan's doing pretty well on that front, which I think long term gives us some protection of problems coming back in the future. But in terms of the businesses who are operating, yeah, I mean, it really is industry specific. There are some that have recovered quite nicely, others that have found more or additional opportunity out of the changes that have happened, but there are some that are really trying to pick up the pieces and the wreckage of these changes. And so I think from the public policy standpoint, it's important to try to anticipate those changes that have happened that are more permanent, that displace workers and businesses, and try to be inclusive in creating a pathway for how you get from where they were to a place in the future that is connected to more opportunity.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Brian Calley with us here on the MegaCast. Before we say goodbye, anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add?
Well, I would just say that coming up after July 1st, the population-wide restrictions, capacity limits, and face mask requirements for the general public, all that goes away. So the governor has said that epidemic emergency order will not be renewed. That's a good sign. But we do still have in place from now all the way through October 14th, the workplace safety rules. I think that the COVID-19 emergency workplace safety rules are going to need to be revisited before October 14th. It's somewhat awkward for a business owner to essentially manage and enforce emergency workplace safety rules at a time when the public health emergency has expired. And so one of the things, a big to-do item on our list is to get the state, MIOSHA, to put an earlier termination date on the COVID-specific workplace safety rules so that they more closely match up with what is being issued out of the public health department.
Brian Calley with us. We have always appreciated your time with us here on the MegaCast, and I know so many of our viewers and listeners do as well, because it's been a confusing time in trying to navigate these rules and regulations as they've been changing sometimes week by week, month by month. And I know that you and your team have been a huge support for so many of these businesses who, prior to this, didn't know how to navigate the grant world. And so I know that you're appreciated, and we wish you best of luck in your new role as CEO that I believe starts in the new year?
That's right, starting January 1st.
Well, and best to Rob Fowler as well. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.